I have waited a long time to make a video on this subject. Hey everybody, this is Söderqvist the Death Meddler, and my god am I so excited to be talking about this video right here. And this was a topic that I have thought long and hard of throughout the entirety of this year, whether I was going to make a video on it or not, but now I finally have the time and the opportunity to make this video, and it is on the most controversial game of this year, Battlefield 5. And I know a lot of people are going to be telling me that I am super far behind and extremely late onto the topic of Battlefield 5, since a lot of people, like for instance some black guy amongst many other YouTubers, had made videos onto this game. Well, I have to say, to quote a good friend of mine, SkullRipper4900, he told me, the only way you have a very strong opinion on a video game is if you play it first. And I've done just that. And I know most of you people are going to be like, oh, it's EA, Söderqvist, why are you doing this shit? Yes, I am very well aware over, last year, especially with Star Wars Battlefront 2, EA has been doing a lot of very cringy ass shit. But you know what? I gotta risk a couple of dollars just to buy this game so I can have a very strong opinion on this video game right here. Cause this was a video game that I have been really wanting to try out myself, but then the whole controversy surrounding it really turned down a lot of people, which is what I'm gonna be talking about. So for this video, I'm gonna be talking about the controversy first and then the gameplay. But first, some context. Now yes, it is no stranger that I identify myself as a gamer, just as your typical run-the-mills SJW identifies herself as a non-binary quadratic bypass surgery sexual kin of color that is also trans and would still get triggered. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. The point is that yes, I identify myself as a gamer, a casual gamer to say the least. I'm not one of those really raging hardcore video gamers and shit, but I just play what games that I do like and I do fancy. So I started playing video games when I was a very young lad at the age of 5 or 6. My babysitter would come by over my house with some gaming consoles, mostly Super Nintendo, and we would play Mario, or I would watch her play Mario. Keep in mind, this was a woman, so that plays a very important role onto this video later on. But as I grew older, my gaming taste grew onto me, and yes, I am going to bring this game franchise up. Call of Duty was one of my favorite games growing up as a child. And yes, I can agree that Call of Duty is the Michael Bay of FPSs. And I mean, I've played almost all the Call of Duty games. I mean, I've played Finest Hour, Big Red 1, 3, Modern Warfare 1, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, Ghosts, Black Ops 3, and World War 2. So I'm very familiar with the Call of Duty franchise. And there was this rivalry at the very start of the 2010s or late 2000s on which was better, Battlefield or Call of Duty. And I didn't really care that much because I didn't really pay that much attention onto trying out Battlefield, which I was fucking stupid for doing that decision, until 2016 when Battlefield brought its game changer, Battlefield 1, which was by far one of my favorite FPSs that I have played. And it was the game that really made me convert from Call of Duty to Battlefield. I mean, this was a FPS that was centered around World War I, because, I mean, we were getting sick and tired of the World War II shooters, all the way to modern warfare and a dystopian future, but seeing that Battlefield did World War I was the ultimate game changer, and it got a lot of people super interested into World War I. So that's what really got me hooked onto Battlefield. When Battlefield 5 was announced earlier this year, I was pretty excited for that, to see, wow, how could they top Battlefield 1? Which with this controversy that I'm talking about, let's see why my hype for it went down over to here. And this is where we begin the controversy surrounding Battlefield 1. So the whole controversy began around during the most wonderful time of the year for all gamers, E3. And E3 basically just shows off like a lot of E3 trailers for games that are coming out this year, games that are coming out next year. Like for instance, I'm pretty psyched for Cyberpunk 2077, probably in next year or 2020. From the same people, CD Projekt Red, that made The Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt, which is still considered one of my favorite games playing, and I still haven't fucking beaten it, but that's beyond the point. I'm getting way off topic. So, Battlefield 5 brought out its E3 trailer, and this is what they brought.
Hello, old friend.
Yeah, fuck! Hello, old friend.
What? What the fuck?
So you can see why a lot of people were getting really going, what? What is this shit? And thus, I mean, as expected, the E3 trailer got a lot of downvotes onto YouTube. And it went from, you know, this was a very crappy opening trailer to this being about women in gaming. Which brings us to the first person, Alan Kurtz, who's probably one of the designers off of E3. And this is what he had to say right here. I knew this was going to be a fight when I pushed for female soldiers in Battlefield. I have a daughter, and I don't want to ever have to answer her the question of, why can't I make a character that looks like me? With, because you're a girl. I fundamentally feel to my core that this is the right way, and I will find myself on the right side of history. And I mean, it's been like this for some time, especially the people that are behind Battlefield 5, DICE. They've really jumped onto the PC Kool-Aid cultural Marxist wagon, all thanks to the Anita Sarkeesians and Zoe Quinns of the world, which I will talk about later on to this. And like the thing is that all of us were not hating the E3 trailer because of women. It was because it was so out of place with a woman with a cybernetic fucking arm and stuff. I mean, if it was Wolfenstein doing this, it would make some sort of sense. But Battlefield has always been, you know, pretty historical into that sense. Though Battlefield 1 wasn't really historically accurate with the prototype weapons that were used. I mean, like a fucking Shoshaw, the worst LMG of World War I to World War II. It is so fucking unreliable. So yeah, it is somewhat inaccurate in Battlefield 1. But it was still pretty accurate with some historical accuracies. But with Battlefield 5, it was just like, what? What the fuck is this? So the controversy kept rolling on until it reached over to the head honcho of DICE, Patrik Söderqvist, the main game designer for DICE. And you're gonna love this, Peel, because like I could just picture like later on to this interview that Patrik Söderqvist is doing, that I could just imagine like 2 Steps from Hell playing in the backwards and shit. Just get ready. I have a 13-year-old daughter that when the trailer came out, she saw all the flack and she asked me, "Dad, why is this happening?" She plays Fortnite and says, "I could be a girl in Fortnite. Why are people so upset about this?" And I just said, you know what? You're right. This is not okay. These are people who are uneducated and they don't understand that this is a plausible scenario. Listen, this is a game, and today gaming is gender diverse like it hasn't been before. There are a lot of female people who want to play and male players who want to play as badass women. And we don't take any flack. We stand up for the cause because I think those people who don't understand it, well, you just have 2 choices. Either accept it or don't buy the game. I'm fine with either. It's just not okay. Oh God. after that, is as expected, you had pretty much all the gaming journalist sites just basically just go around saying that this epic speech, this interview that Patrik did, you know, was very groundbreaking, and thus you had all these gaming journalists just pretty much just attack the demographic of Battlefield, just like the gamers, just calling them all misogynistic, assholic incels and shit. And this has just been a pattern that I have seen for far too fucking long, that the gaming developers and gaming journalists just completely treat their consumers, their demographics, like absolute fucking shit, when in truth, you know, most of these people just want a good game. And instead of just hearing the criticisms from these people, their targeted audience, they just like, oh, they're just a bunch of incels. They're a bunch of misogynistic assholes. I mean, if you understand, like 6.5 years ago, I worked in a restaurant, and I've heard stories by my former coworkers who were servers that I've heard horror stories on how, like, the customers would really treat them like shit, just backtalk them, say, oh, would you do this? It was not proper, or just not leave them any tips and stuff. And taking from that, I learned very importantly that you just be nice to the server serving your food, as well as just leave them fucking goddamn tips. I mean, it's very expected if you are eating somewhere at a restaurant and shit. Like, I've learned that while working in the restaurant biz, like 6.5 years ago, from the end of my senior year in high school to the very end of my college years. Yeah, I've worked that long. It's just been this huge pattern of the game developers and journalists just really going after their own audience, just treating their own demographic, their own audience, just absolute shit. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have a few people that are just a bunch of sexist incels that just hate women in gaming, but, you know, they're a small minority, and of course, the minority always screams the fucking loudest. Go fucking figure. But the truth is, like, a lot of people like myself and a bunch of other people just want a very good game. And, you know, when we see stuff like this, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Now, yes, I mean, we can all talk about on how, like, conservatives are trying their best to, like, you know, attack the gaming, you know, community. Like, all these video games are causing a lot of boys to do some mass shootings like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold and stuff. But the real problem is that it's the leftists that are the biggest problem here, because they are deep into the gaming industry. All the Anita Sarkeesians and Zoe Quinns have made the gaming industry their fucking bitch. I mean, we can all remember in 2014 and where, you know, Grand Theft Auto 5 was to be banned in Australia because it was violence against women. Not to mention earlier this, not like last month, with the whole controversy around this YouTuber that made some quite, you know, shocking but hilarious videos of his gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2 when he takes a suffragette and throws her to an alligator, and he had his channel terminated, but his channel was back up, and oh my god. That's what these people think about, you know, their targeted audience. That's what they think about them. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, everyone is like that. I mean, fucking hell, like, I could also remember when Assassin's Creed Odyssey was announced that there were people getting absolutely triggered over the fact that you could have a same-sex romance with your assassin of choice. But the thing is that Greco-Roman society was all about homosexual relationships. Now, DICE is not the only one that is known to cater and pander to its PC SJW audience. For instance, BioWare. Yes, I am bringing up BioWare, the company that brought me, you know, one of my favorite gaming franchises, Mass Effect and Dragon Age, that I played non-stop throughout the end of my high school years and to my early college years. They pandered so hard to their SJW audience. Like, the moment in where I played Inquisition, I was like, wow, how the mighty have fallen. And, you know, it's just like that. I mean, game designers and gaming journalists try to pander to their SJW audiences and then at the same time shit on their casual audiences and shit like that. And that's just what it's like with the gaming industry right now. And of course, the big factor here in this whole Battlefield 5 fiasco is just the whole thing with women in gaming, like, my daughter this, my daughter that, you know, misogyny in gaming, you know, women in gaming this and that, and all this other shit right here. Now, I just have to make things absolutely explicitly clear. I have nothing against women in gaming. I am perfectly fine with women playing video games just like, you know, us guys play video games. I'm all for it. I mean, fucking hell. My babysitter that I mentioned earlier, she got me into playing video games. Without her, I wouldn't be playing fucking video games to this very fucking day. And what's really funny is that I mentioned Call of Duty earlier onto this video. And what's really funny is that Call of Duty portrayed women in World War II far better than the E3 opening trailer of Battlefield 5. Like the very first Call of Duty I played when I was young, Finest Hour, you played as a Russian sharpshooter named Tanya Pavlinova on, you know, the second part of the Soviet campaign. And it is also historically known that the Soviets hired Russian women as their sharpshooters because, and I do, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they believed that women were better sharpshooters than their male counterparts. But then again, you have Vasily Zaitsev, the hero of Stalingrad, you know, the movie Enemy at the Gates is from, and of course, the White Death himself, Simo Häyhä of Finland. And of course, and the most recent Call of Duty game, World War II, where you briefly play Camille Rosa-Denis, who is of the Maquis, which was a French resistance movement back in World War II. And I will indeed say this, the most action that women had in World War II were of resistance movements, because women played a very, very strong role behind, you know, in the German occupied areas of Europe, like resistance pockets, resistance movements, like the Maquis, the Home Army of Poland, the Danish resistance movement, and of course the Mielorg of Norway. Like, women played a huge role into those resistance movements, you know, gathering information, trying to bribe, you know, Germans and stuff like that, while, you know, being occupied by the Third Reich. And, you know, there were lots of women that did a lot of, you know, daring things to help out, you know, their own folk during, you know, Nazi-occupied Europe and shit like that. So, Call of Duty did actually did a better job portraying women in World War II than Battlefield 5, but we'll talk more about that later when I talk about the gameplay right here. And this is something that I've always noticed when it comes to, like, FPS shooter games, when it comes to World War II, is that we're always portrayed as the good guys. You know, the Americans, the British, and the Soviet Union, you know, trying to defeat Charlie Chaplin's stash boy over here. Yes, Hitler was a fan of Charlie Chaplin, which explains his mustache right over here, and his atrocities of Europe, along with his Axis powers being Hungary, Romania, Italy, Croatia, and Japan. But we fail to realize that we've also done atrocities ourselves. Like, yeah, we can all agree here that Hitler wasn't a nice guy. I mean, fucking hell, one of his allies, the Stasi, made the Nazis look like Boy Scouts when it came to their persecution of gypsies, Serbs, and Jews. Like, my God, these guys were nasty. The point that I'm trying to make here, people, was that this was a war. We weren't the good guys right here, because we were doing atrocities ourselves. I mean, fucking hell. We can all remember that we put Japanese Americans into internment camps. Even the Canadians have done this as well. And what's even more super fucked up is that we pardoned war criminals of Japan that were responsible for Unit 731, which was basically the Auschwitz of Asia. Like, look it up when you have the time. It's so fucking messed up. Let's not forget about our Brit-bong buddies, the British Commonwealth, that did mass atrocities like, you know, commit a mass famine to India. But, you know, you have to starve those Indians to give some food to the British. So, you know, they need some of those food and nutrients to punch some Nazis, am I right? Also, not to mention the bombing of Dresden, where they completely incinerated almost the inhabitants of Dresden. But, you know, those people deserved it because they were Nazis, am I right? And let's not forget our good old friend, our good old Uncle Joseph Stalin. And should I say much? Should I say fucking much onto Joseph Stalin? Cause the stuff that Stalin did made Hitler's atrocities pale in comparison. I mean, he committed the mass famine of Holodomor, the purges of the 1930s, the Katyn massacre to my people, as well as killing his own people and did military, like completely demoralizing his entire military branch thanks to the great purge that he did in the 30s. And his kill count dwarfed that of Hitler's. But you know, he was our ally to defeat the Third Reich and shit like that. People, the point that I'm trying to make here, I'm not trying to downplay Hitler and the Third Reich. They were bad in their respected manner. The point that I'm trying to make here, people, is that atrocities were done by both sides. We may, you know, go around saying that we were fighting a good cause, but hell was paved, the road to hell was paved in good intentions, and the old saying goes, history's written by the victors. That is all I gotta say.
What? I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying. What'd he say? What'd he say?
Look, I washed for supper.
So I think that this is a good time to set aside my grievances over the controversy surrounding Battlefield 5, and let's talk about the gameplay of Battlefield 5 now, shall we? Now, with every sort of game like this, I always go ahead and play the campaign first, when in this case, it's actually war stories. So there were actually four war stories onto Battlefield 5. Only the last one was, you know, released out onto December 6th. I don't know why they did that, I don't know, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The first war story was, of course, Nordiques, which was where you play as a Norwegian resistance fighter, which of course was a female, and as I said earlier, there were lots of women that made up the ranks of resistance pockets in, you know, Norway, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Spain, under the regime of Francisco Franco, you know, just a bunch of, you know, resistance pockets, and women made up a good chunk of resistance pockets into Europe, and I saw it was pretty good. It was actually a really good setting where it was this resistance fighter trying to save her mother, who was basically helping the Germans create weapons, which they were actually trying to stop the creation of the atom bomb before the Americans did, which I thought was pretty interesting. And yes, like, the Nazis used Norway to make a lot of, like, you know, experiments onto, like, you know, future weapons, most notably the atom bomb being, you know, on a V2 rocket, which, you know, I found that very interesting. The second level was the title of Under No Flag. And it was a pretty good one. It was the story of a criminal of the UK named Billy Bridger, who was conscripted by the British Army to go behind enemy lines into North Africa, mostly Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, to sabotage the Germans' air pockets, which, I mean, it was a fun level and all, but I also love this part here into the very end of the level where they're doing this epic last stand before they called in air support, and I love this part right here.
This is war, son. We fight one battle and then we fight another one until it's done. What you gonna do? Feel sorry for yourself and just fucking lay down and die? Or are you Billy Bridger, a trier?
Yeah, I suppose.
I can't hear you!
Yes! I am. Oh, Billy fucking Bridger!
Good boy, that's what I want to hear.
Despite the shortbacks on what I said on to, you know, my grievances over to DICE and Battlefield, I will indeed say they make some really good stuff when it comes to scripting and all that shit like that. And also, funny enough, like, I forgot to say this about Nordelays, that they actually left out their... They actually stuck the native tongues onto Germans and Norwegians and close-up French later on to this, you know, review onto the campaigns. But I loved this level. It was pretty cool, and I just loved it. The third one was obviously one of my favorites, and it was a very interesting, you know, backstory onto this level called the Tirailleurs. Most notably, the Senegalese Tirailleurs. Now, if you all do remember in the first Battlefield that it showed the Harlem Hellfighters, and we all understood on how, like, black soldiers were completely segregated from their white counterparts. When they really wanted to fight, they had to really prove themselves to just fight alongside their white counterparts, but they were just given, like, you know, laborious tasks like, you know, digging latrines, setting up fortifications, and all that. And it was no exception for the Senegalese Tirailleurs as well. Tirailleurs are basically French colonial troops, whether they're from Algeria, Senegal, and Vietnam. But in this case, it's the Senegalese Tirailleurs. And let's just say that they were treated even worse by the French than, you know, the blacks in America. But I'm not trying to downplay it here. Like, blacks in America and blacks in colonial France were treated very harshly. And, you know, the Senegalese Tirailleurs had to prove the best of their abilities to just fight just as well as their white French counterparts. And I find it so ironic that we're trying to fight the most evil, vile racist ever of the last century, and yet, you know, we as Americans, you know, segregated our black soldiers. And the Senegalese Tirailleurs, on how they were treated after World War II, was just fucked up in its own right. I have a video of simple history that I will leave down in the description below right here, but it is a very fascinating, very interesting, you know, story behind these guys, because they fought just as hard for a country that they never knew of, that, you know, colonized their native Senegal, and yet were treated like shit instead of, like, being treated as war heroes to their own respective right. And that's a tragic sense right there. And then we get to the last Tiger, where you play as a German Tiger tank captain onto the last dying days of the Third Reich. And all I gotta say, even though I did enjoy the very aggressive tank battles, the very end of it was just very bleak, and you could just see on how absolutely hopeless and very bleak it felt for those onto the German side. And yes, we can all comfortably say that, oh, they were Nazis, they deserved it, Nazi punks, fuck off. But then again, I mean, if you were on the Germans' side, the side of the losing side, and you were seeing this whole hopelessness and seeing your fellow comrades get killed for being deserted and stuff, and you're just in this hopeless situation where you were being attacked by the coalition of the US and French Canadian, New Zealand, and Australian forces coming at you from the west, and then you have the Soviets coming at you from the east, and it was just very bleak. And just seeing that, I mean, it was pretty depressing to me in a sense. Now for multiplayer, I absolutely love the multiplayer that goes on to Battlefield 5. I'm still trying to, I'm still trying to work my ways around and trying to level up on my squads and stuff. I love how you can customize both your ally squad and your Axis squad, customize their looks, their gender, and the weapons that they have. And also customizing your own weapons and stuff. I'm very glad that they ditched the makeup part out, which was very silly, and no cybernetic arms, so I was very glad that they did that. But with the whole thing with, playing as females onto the multiplayer, as much as I was very critical onto, DICE saying women this, women that, it was okay for me with playing as females onto Battlefield 5 as well. There was nothing wrong with that, but I do love how you can customize your weapons, how you can customize your soldier, because like in Battlefield 1, it looked like you were playing the same person of the class that you had, which kind of really irked me at first, but I'm really glad they changed that. And also with the soundtrack of Battlefield 5, I absolutely fucking loved the soundtrack. Just like with Battlefield 1, which Battlefield 1 made an epic score. The same person that was responsible for the score of Battlefield 1 did a phenomenal job onto Battlefield 5. My most favorite tracks of Battlefield 5 was, of course, the main theme for Battlefield 5 was so fucking epic, as well as the Under No Flag track at the very end of Under No Flag, which was just a very beautifully crafted song. It almost made me think of Lord of the Rings, so have a listen. Just very beautiful and emotional track. I mean, I absolutely, personally in my opinion, I loved that track, and it ranks it up there with the soundtrack of Battlefield 1. With Battlefield 1's very rocky road controversy at the very beginning, I could at least give DICE a pass for actually making really good designs onto their video games, their graphics, their designs of Battlefield 1 last year, and it makes it up with Battlefield 5 with their attention to detail onto the lighting, the graphics, the engineering, the sound design. It is just very perfect. But they were so bad with the whole controversy of women in gaming and stuff. I can at least give them credit at that. So that really concludes on what I have to say about Battlefield 5. What are your thoughts onto Battlefield 5? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Leave it down in the comments below. Personally for me, I think Battlefield 5 was pretty good with its graphics, the soundtrack, its sound. It was a little bit rushed with the scripting of the campaign, though the campaign scripting of Battlefield 1 was very perfect, really emotional. I loved it. But Battlefield 5 seemed a little bit too rushed. But who knows? Who knows what'll happen when they bring out more content later on the next 2 years. For me, Battlefield 5 gets a 7 out of 10 for me. So that concludes this very epic rant onto Battlefield 5. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus, the Death Metaler. Hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel. Links are in the description below. Keep it metal. Have an excellent and blessed day, y'all.
Across the savage skies and through the fishes in the fields, the rumble of the engines and the struggle of the wheels, through hell and horror trudging, yet our spirits never yield.